We are live.
All right, I'm recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factor.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
Burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain a fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factor podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew?
Everyone's here. Well, most of us are. The original threesome's here. So.
And everybody knows that's what you turn into Pornhub for.
Yeah. Pornhub. America's greatest quiet companion.
The greatest invention since masturbation, Pornhub.
Well, you know,
America's best friend, nobody knows.
my son was telling me someone, because there's some kind of stinger they play before Pornhub movies. And my brother said someone put that on their phone and made it whenever they got a text. It was like the Pornhub stinger. Whenever they got a text, and the thing is, you'd look and see how many people in the room recognized it right away. Like, oh, that's wonderful. It gives those girls in California something to do. Isn't that still where all the porn shot that we see here?
It's usually in two places. It's either in California or Florida.
Florida, yeah.
But now with the internet, there's a lot of independent amateur stuff out there. You can make real good money if you're really good looking and just spend 8 hours in front of your camera all day for strange people.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I watched a video that was explaining how like now porn stars are using the Starbucks model for porn, where they're like more personable and they can make a lot more money and control their own interests.
Yeah, it's probably better than just some guy handing them cocaine and stealing all their money. Just throw a few bed sheets up around the trailer park or around the trailer you're in. Put a camera up and.
You know, because there's this one woman that was like one of the most popular porn stars. Like she makes like 8 figures like like a year now, just by doing OnlyFans account.
Oh yeah.
Because that's like the new wave sweeping the porn industry is OnlyFans. Because somebody can pay like $6 and have a month full of like premium content, basically. So it's
Although I was listening to what's that?
OnlyFans?
Yeah. It's basically like porn, but Twitch. Do you know what Twitch is?
Not really.
It's sort of like what we're doing now, but like if we had a chat room where people gave us money to do things, but you played video games while doing it. That's Twitch, and then OnlyFans is kind of like that, but with porn. Actually, it's actually kind of backwards because Twitch took that model from porn, from cam sites. But I thought maybe you would be more familiar with Twitch than cam sites.
Not really gone to either.
But anyways, there's like it's basically like they have a library of porn they make, and you can subscribe to it.
Oh, okay. So they just cut out the middleman.
Yeah, and then like you could either just get the videos they make like as they come, or you can no pun there, but or you can like spend extra money and you can like basically give them a script to act out a video you want to see.
Okay, yeah,
that's where the real money is.
So my shot at becoming a porn director is still based upon me financing porn. Okay.
And there's something I was listening to a podcast and about video games, and they were talking about OnlyFans, and then like that's kind of what I know about OnlyFans is from a video game podcast because they talk about it way too much. Um, and they were saying like OnlyFans is like all fucked up now because like a girl who used to be like a part of the Disney Channel like didn't get any more acting work, and then she turned to OnlyFans, and like it just like she got a lot of money, and then they had to like start cracking down on things. I don't even know what it's about, but there's some hubbub with OnlyFans now.
Oh, okay.
I'd say she got what she deserved, which is actual money. I mean, who cares if she wants to expose herself for money? That's her prerogative. So I mean, I don't know. It's say like I'm not totally in support.
It's probably something she probably used stuff from her Disney Channel days to sell sex, and then Disney probably gotten involved and said no, you can't do that, and then
I could see Disney doing that. Like, nope, nope, this isn't gonna work. Get off the Little Mermaid bottom thing.
And then that probably caused a cascade of like legal things to then happen to every account or whatever. So
yeah,
true.
No Star Trek parody porn.
No, it's just what they do. They just call it a not a Star Trek movie or something like that. There's like a category of like it's just like. It's like not the Star Trek or not Star Wars movie, and it's just a porn parody. But because it says "not" in the title, they can use the the title, the trademark title.
Nice. Well, people are gonna do whatever they can to make money.
Well, speaking of a porn parody cast, I've been playing the new Marvel Avengers game.
I've heard of that, but I haven't had a chance to really look at it.
It looked awful in everything I've seen, and then there was some a beta of it, and like I didn't hear good things, and then like right as it got released, I was like, hey, it's all right. But what's funny is that they don't have any of the likeness rights to any of the like the Marvel MCU likenesses, so everybody just looks like a porn parody version of the MCU characters. Because they don't necessarily look like their comic book versions, but they also don't look like the movie versions. So there's kind of a blending. So they just look like a porn cast for a parody porn. It's essentially like it's kind of like Diablo, but with superheroes, and it kind of plays like the Arkham Asylum games. It's all right. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be a fucking train wreck, and it's not that. But it's still like not necessarily worth $60, but.
Well, because the other game that I've looked at today, because I had a little bit of time, Necromunda Underhive Gang Wars.
What's that?
It's a 40K property, basically, because there's a Necromunda thing where it's just basically put a shitload of trade on the board, just a bunch of gangs fighting over territory and shit they can steal. But it's just now it's like an XCOM type game. So you create your own gang and manage your own territory and try and steal and do jobs and get to the base of the Underhive, where there's apparently an artifact or a MacGuffin you can try and steal, basically.
Huh.
Because that's like the story of it. But I don't know who it's made by. That's the only thing I couldn't find out today, because I only watched like a trailer and a little bit of gameplay.
Those Warhammer games are made by everybody.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, it looked like pretty well done. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's a great
There's so
game.
many Warhammer games I have no idea of the quality of either of them, but I've had like several of them, and I've never played them. I mostly have the Dawn of War ones, and then there's been a couple like the Invictus ones, which I think are RTS games that looked neat, and then I bought them and never played them. And then me and Andrew played another Marvel game, the Legendary Marvel card game.
Oh, okay.
Which I found very entertaining.
And yeah, I like it quite a bit. I've gone so far as to purchase more expansion packs. So I got the base game. Which should I explain the game first?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
You have this board that represents like villains and heroes, and then you pick. It comes with 500 cards, but you don't actually use all 500 cards, because you pick heroes, and every hero has 14 cards associated with them, and you pick like 5 of them, unless unless some of the special rule dictates otherwise. And then, as you like, you're trying to fight a bad guy. They call the mastermind, and there's like other villains and stuff like that. And you just use the cards to do it. And it's like, I don't like. It's made by the same guy who did Magic the Gathering, or one of those dudes. And I don't know. Does it compare to that, Andrew?
In a way, I mean, there's really no. I mean, there's kind of like recruit points and stuff like that for kind of like a mana pool, but it doesn't really like go specifically into like what type of energy source you need. So it kind of plays to that, but not necessarily the same.
Yeah,
it has a little bit of the feeling.
But what makes it fun is that it's a cooperative game. So it's like all the players are trying to defeat the bad guy, but you're not necessarily like all the cards are like it's a card building game, but it's like it's internal to the game. It's not like Magic the Gathering where you're buying blind packs trying to build like a cool card deck for yourself to be competitive. It's all internal, so you don't have to like.
Oh, okay, so it's not collecting and
yeah,
constantly restacking decks. Okay, all right.
Although this game has about like $400 worth of expansion packs, but
what board game doesn't anymore, to be honest?
That makes it nice.
But it's like every expansion pack has like a new set of rules, so it's kind of neat. So the one I got that we played with was the Paint the Town Red, which had Carnage in it, which had a verb called Feast, where basically every time there's a thing called a Master Strike, which makes the mastermind do something to you, and like that means he would like eat one of your heroes, and then you couldn't use them anymore. You get knocked out. And you choose what's called a scheme, and that kind of like it's like alters the game completely, like what scheme you draw, like what was the scheme? Do you remember the scheme that we played?
Or like our scheme twist or whatever, basically.
Yeah.
Well, it just had like scroll invasion, so it was like a bunch of fucking doppelganger motherfuckers that you had to figure out if they were real or not.
So we had to draw an extra hero. So we had 6 heroes, and then we took 12 cards out of the hero deck, and then they went into the villain deck. And then that was kind of it was interesting. And then if they popped up, you'd have to like add 2 extra hit points to them, and it was harder to kill them. So that was pretty interesting. I played one where it was like the Clone War Saga or something like that, and like one of the lose conditions is if 2 cards. If 2 enemy cards escaped and they were the same card, then you lost the game immediately.
Oh, okay.
I still suck at this. I do not shuffle cards very well because every once in a while it's just like 5 cards in a row of the same card. Because the way I organize, when you're done, you have to like reorganize the deck and put them away nicely. At least I do. So then when it comes back to like we shuffle them, there's like a lot of cards are the same thing. And then just ends up being just like a whole like 5 cards in a row of the same card. Like, oh, fuck that up. So I need to get better at shuffling. And there's another one I played where it's there's a wound deck, so you can get wounds, being like how when you fight enemies, there's condition. When you fight an enemy, like there's a condition that happens where it's like this is what it costs to fight them. Not just like you have to equal their hit points to beat them, but fighting them causes a reaction. Sometimes you get a wound from fighting somebody. And what the wound card does basically just you draw 6 cards at a time, and it would just take up a spot and be useless.
Oh, okay.
But the twist to the game that happened here was that, or just the scheme. The scheme twists are what pop up out of the villain deck, and that creates all kinds of havoc. The scheme had it that there's only because you can play this one player, but I just play 2 hands to make it easier. Actually, it ends up being complicated because I end up shuffling the wrong cards in the wrong deck. But ended up being like 12 wounds in the deck total. And then like one of the lose conditions is if like all the wounds if all the wounds get used, then you lose the game. And then one of the scheme twists, what it did is like you had to look at the top card of your deck, and if both cards weren't the right like type, then you gain 2 wounds, and there was like 8 scheme cards in the deck, each scheme twist. So like I never got the right pull for that thing, and I got all the scheme twist cards, and I just immediately lost the game right there. So, but then I got the Deadpool expansion pack, which I thought like, oh, this will be fun, and it's fucking weird.
Deadpool.
Yeah, for Deadpool it makes sense. Like characters have half points, which so like with this game to like fight enemies or to recruit enemies, there's no like half measures. It's either you have enough to fight the enemy, or you have enough to recruit the hero, or you don't. It's all or nothing. And so like so a half point does nothing, but you can see how like if you have multiple cards of the same card, or you use more characters from the deck, like if you have 2 half point cards, then like they combine together to work well. But then there's a bunch of shit where there's a new verb called overkill, where if you kill an enemy or fight at the mastermind and you have the card says overkill on it, and you have more hit points than the card's actually worth, then like a bunch of crazy shit happens where it seems like more harm than good, which I guess like would make sense for Deadpool. So
Yeah.
it's like kill an extra villain but gain 5 wounds or something like that. It's weird. And then the other expansion I got a big one, was the World War Hulk.
Okay.
And a cool thing about that is it has this new transform ability, where all the heroes come with 14 cards, but in this deck all the heroes come with like 17 to 18 cards, because there's a special transform ability where like the card, if you meet certain conditions on the card, then that card transforms into a different card, and then you put that one away and you pull out the transform card, and it has like bigger abilities and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So like all the expansion packs just like add new verbs and new schemes, and just changes the game completely. So it seems like the endless game, but it's pretty neat for a board game.
Yeah. Nice looking one.
Yeah.
Been looking at it while you're talking about.
I mean, it's just cards, but it works. It works. Like, you can see how this like it reads.
And just like, oh, okay, I'll take the low cost shit and I can play stuff for free. That's cool. And it's like, who doesn't like that?
So yeah.
So yeah, I'd say playing Legendary is definitely a good. I mean, especially for the price point entry, because I thought it was slightly more expensive, but especially with Amazon stuff and some of my local game store, it was a lot more affordable than I thought it would be.
I mean, like I said, it can be a $60 game, or it can be a $400 game if you go all in with it. But I got a different Star Wars board game which I haven't done yet. But the only reason I got into board games recently is because I was listening to the Song One. It's Pro Zed YouTube channel, and he was just reviewing board games, and he was reviewing the cooperative ones, and so I picked a couple of those up because like when the power went out. Even though I had like 5 different game devices that I was charged up and ready to play, I was like, oh, I see the value of board games right now, so that's kind of why I got them. So,
Oh, okay.
in case the power goes out.
Just in case.
Because how long were you guys without power over at your house?
4 days.
Okay, that's about the same as me. Slightly shorter. But you're a lot new neighborhood without as many trees near all your lines, so that's probably helpful.
Well, we had a weird thing where it's like, the rest of the neighborhood got their power back a day early, and we didn't because we're on a different grid.
Huh.
We're on like some municipality grid while everybody else is on like the what's the company here? Alliant Energy? Yeah, they're on Alliant Energy, so it was fucking weird. So they're obviously a much smaller company, so they were not able to get the power back on as quickly as Alliant Energy was.
Well, I guess anything helps. I mean, especially when you're talking about like whole, how many hundreds of thousands of people didn't have power.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Like last week, there was people in the store. It's like, yeah, we just got power back today. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
No, they're not kidding you.
I mean, that'd be like almost a fucking like 3 weeks without power.
Yeah, it was really fucking shitty for some people, and I can't say that they definitely don't deserve to be pissed off, because I mean, I know when you live rural, you kind of take that chance, but at the same time, yeah, it's pretty shitty infrastructure if you ask me. But
Well, I mean, we got a hurricane with all the notice of a tornado warning, so yeah.
well, I just mean in general that like some of the stuff I'm talking about, like tree trimming and just like infrastructure stuff that should be done more, just to try and, because that was a lot of the problem in Cedar Rapids anyway, was just fucking all the trees that fell on top of everything. And yeah, you're gonna have that in hurricanes anyway, but just like the mitigation of like, oh yeah, all these old fucking trees nobody trims because nobody can afford to trim their trees every goddamn 3 years.
We gotta get that helicopter with like with just the chain of blades. Just rolling
Just do
through.
a James Bond film here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Mr. Bond. We're gonna
Get those things to, because who has those power companies?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the hard to reach areas.
Yeah, because they cut them to like keep the trees away from the power lines.
Yeah.
But they usually just do that around like the high voltage power lines, not really around the neighborhood power lines.
Yeah.
People might not want like a giant helicopter with giant blades swinging around their neighborhood.
Chasing the kids off the playground.
We have an F1 update. Nathan, did you watch the Italian Grand Prix?
Yes, I finally got to watch it Tuesday.
What did you think of that race?
It was an interesting race. I mean, it was
And actually an exciting race.
yeah, there was, well, I was trying to understand. I know they said it was bad news when Lewis Hamilton, it's like, oh, he's not supposed to pit, and because there was a big crash, like somebody lost his brakes and they had to reset the barricade or something.
Yeah, well, like that, I think it was on lap 6, Sebastian Vettel. So there's this really long straight on the track at Monza, and they put like this little kink in it, so you have to like slow down and turn. But they're still like, but on some setup, it's just a straightaway like that. So there's this little, they'll call it like an escape road. So in case you fuck up that turn, you have to go through this little road, and they put up these styrofoam barricades to force you to have to like weave around them to slow you down, so you don't gain an advantage if you take the escape road.
Yeah.
So this guy's brakes failed, so he just fucking blows right through those barricades, just rams right through it. Now the styrofoam, so they don't really hurt anything, but it's just funny as hell. It seemed like he was just giving up on life. It's like, oh fuck it.
Wish these were steel.
Because he's had a really bad year, but former champion, barely making it. Can't even get in the points most of the time. But yeah, his brakes failed, and so he got on there, and it's like brakes failed.
I mean, to be honest, who's not having a really bad year right now?
I don't know what was saying. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. In terms of generally, yes, but for the sports, it's pretty bad for him. But we'll have some news from right on, so there's things to look forward to for him. So yeah, then later on, you had Kevin Magnussen. His car just broke, and he's coming in for the pits, and then like the pits. He's coming into pit to basically retire the car, but then like something just breaks in the car, and he just like immediately pulls it off to the grass area in the pit lane. And and then a safety car comes out, and when a safety car comes out, like you want to pit like immediately to gain the advantage, because you basically get a free pit if you pit like kind of like just as the safety car comes out, because it slows down everybody else. And so Lewis Hamilton comes in to pit, and then like as soon as he's pulling up to the pit box, they're getting on the radio. It's like, stay out. And they're like, what? So what happened is because Kevin Magnussen like pulled his car just off to the side of the pit lane had become closed.
Yep.
And because of that, Lewis Hamilton is going to be served a 10-second stop-go penalty, which is actually more seconds than you because just driving through the pit lane at the correct speed.
Yeah.
It's at minimum. I think the fastest you can do it is 18 seconds, but it's around 20 seconds if you were just drive through pit lane.
Right.
So he has to drive up to the pit box, wait 10 seconds, and then drive out of the pit lane. So it's essentially a 30-second penalty.
Right.
And so the safety car gets he pulls out in first, and like everybody lines up behind the safety car, and then the safety car gets let go. And then like pretty soon after that, Charles Leclerc, the other Ferrari driver, just flies off at a corner and hits the wall.
Yeah.
When you see the onboard, it doesn't look that bad. It's like, well, it looks like that sucked. But every other angle of that car wreck looked horrific.
Yeah.
I think he hit the wall doing 160 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well,
Had to reset the barrier, right?
yeah, it was a tire barrier. So he fucked up that tire barrier so bad they had to red flag the race, and so everybody pulled into the pits in the position they were, and the race was stopped. So people like get out of their cars and like start hanging out. No, I usually don't have days off to watch I had the day off this time, and so I like woke up late, and I woke up to the race being red flagged. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And so, and then like the grid was at that point and Pierre Gasly had pitted like just before Kevin Magnussen's car broke down. So he was in third place, and Lance Stroll was in second place, and then Lewis Hamilton was in first place, but he hasn't served his penalty yet. And we got about half the race to go, about 27 laps or something like that. And then they continue the race. Lewis Hamilton, he tries to get away from the pack for a couple laps, or maybe just one lap, because they want to pit him immediately, because in case there's another safety car, then maybe he can cut the penalty time. But so he goes in and does the stop go penalty, and then he is in last place. When he gets out of the pit, the radio engineer gets on and goes, 23 seconds to the pack. And he goes, that's some bullshit. And it actually was it demonstrated how good of a driver that Lewis Hamilton was. He goes from last place, he's 23 seconds from the pack, and he finishes the race in 7th place.
Yeah, he moved on.
But they made it. But the ending of the race was great, because Pierre Gasly wins the race almost barely, because Carlos Sainz was catching him the entire time. Basically, if he had one or two more laps, he probably would have passed Gasly.
Oh, okay.
And then third was Lance Stroll. He never actually came into pit. Technically, it's during the red flag. You're able to work on your car, and he changed his tires during the red flag. And apparently, people thought that was a bullshit thing, because he technically never came into pit. He just.
Oh, I see.
So he comes in third, and this is the first podium in almost 20 years or something that didn't have a Mercedes or Ferrari or a Red Bull.
Yeah. Didn't Red Bull fire this French guy that won this?
Yeah, so that's what makes it that's what makes it amazing. Is last year he gets fired for having bad results. Well, he doesn't get fired. He gets put back to the junior team.
Yeah.
But in F1, there's only 20 seats for the entire world to drive an F1 car. So essentially, what you're watching the end of a young man's career.
Yeah.
This isn't going to end well. And then when they put him back on that team the next week, one of his best friends dies at Spa. And it's and then it just things are not looking up for Pierre Gasly. And then at Brazil, he gets that podium. He gets the third place drag racing Lewis Hamilton at the end of it. And I was okay, all right, that was a good race from Pierre Gasly, but you're still probably watching the end of his career. And this year, he got robbed this year, so that's also not a great thing.
Robbed?
When he was out racing, somebody robbed his house.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, he's just had a lot of tough times recently. But like this year, he's been doing really well. Like you watch him during races because he's the only one actually like racing people. So he's a very exciting to watch because he's actually like passing people. Like everybody else is like, well, I'm in second place. I can't pass the guy in front of me, but I'm making sure the guy behind me can't pass me, and that's the result for the rest of the race. It's very boring, but like Pierre Gasly is actually racing people. So it was such good. It was just really cool to see him win, and it's really nice to like listen to other radio messages like as soon as the race ended. Because like everyone's hopeful because the race was so crazy. It's like, anybody could have won this.
Yeah.
But still, Williams didn't get any points. But like he cut to the radio for George Russell, and he's like, "Oh man, we almost had it." And he's like, "What was the final result?" And he goes, his race engineer goes, "Gasly." And then as soon as he says Gasly, he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? That's fantastic." And then the other one was Romain Grosjean, which I think he got up to like 12th place, but right at the end. So that was like one of the best results for him. But he's a French driver, and Pierre Gasly's also French.
Yeah.
So as soon as he hears Pierre Gasly won, he's like, "Oh fucking yes!" He's like, we haven't had a French driver win since like '99. That was the last time a French. So it was really nice to see. Isn't it really nice to see other people be happy? Like. A better guy couldn't have won the race.
Yeah, like everyone liked this guy.
Yeah,
he's not flipping people off and screaming at them.
No, I don't know. It's like he obviously won the race because of the circumstances, but he still had to spend the rest of that race keeping people away from him. So he did
the stands and win the race. So,
that was a really cool race. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it seemed interesting. There was some excitement there.
Oh, what was the thing you were talking about? You didn't necessarily understand.
No, I didn't understand. I didn't understand like the pit, just the pit situation, and because they immediately said, "Oh, that's a huge fuck up." I'm like, "What? He's getting his tires changed?" Because I'm just watching it live.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a Formula One expert, and then they start doing the replay where it was saying box. I guess that means don't go in there or whatever.
No, box means to come into the pit box.
Oh, okay. But so then, I was confused because they said, well, there were clearly indicators on the field that said not to pit, and then his in-cab thing was saying to come into pit, and it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing because he knows the situation. It's like, well, we should come in the pit because of the safety car. And the pit lane is to the right, but there's these signs off to the left, the indicators, and it's like showing like a red cross.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, like half the drivers didn't even know it was like, don't come into the pit lane.
Yeah, it seems like they need this because as a casual fan, I was like, why is it a big deal? He's getting his tires changed. Don't they always do that when the car comes out? But then I didn't catch the wreck beforehand, or it didn't dawn.
Well, it was because the car was in the pit lane. That was just for safety reasons they closed the pit lane.
Yeah.
And because he committed a safety violation, then that demands a very hefty penalty.
Got a feeling he's going to be okay for the year.
Yeah, he's still going to win the championship.
Yeah.
I also like it's like Bottas had like kind of a bad race. I think he finished in 6th, but it just seemed like a bad race for him because it seemed like he had the opportunity to like just carve up the field. But I guess what was interesting, you get to see the limits of the Mercedes car is that like if they're in traffic, they're not good because where they get a lot of their speed from is they designed the car to basically drive not in traffic.
Yeah.
So if they're in traffic, they have a lot of heating issues because the way they dissipate the heat, I'm guessing, is lighter than most cars, and that gives them an advantage in speed. But if they're racing other cars, then like the car's going to overheat because there's several times in the race where Bottas was like driving where you wouldn't drive, just to get cool air to cool the car because
so he's sucking in exhaust from other cars.
yes, exactly.
So they're probably using a super light magnesium alloy radiator or something.
Yeah.
Okay. It's probably very small cooling surface.
But also, it didn't really seem to be a problem for Hamilton because he kind of just carved his way up to the front, so he would have to also deal with that. But I don't know, his car didn't seem to be overheating. But also, Hamilton is just such a unique driver. He just doesn't make mistakes except for this one, and also he's very smooth with how he drives. That's what makes him so fast as a driver is that his like transitioning from braking to acceleration is so smooth and efficient that he can drive faster and use less fuel than everybody else.
Oh, okay. He's just not jamming the brakes, jamming the throttle.
No.
He's transitioning. Okay.
Well, that reminds me of a term that I didn't understand for a while. It always gets like talked about with Daniel Ricciardo when he's like passing somebody. You'll hear this on commentary. He goes like, Daniel Ricciardo, the last of the late breakers. And what I took at as first was like, oh, is late braking a skill that's just not taught anymore? And Daniel Ricciardo is the last of the late breakers? Like, oh no, everybody breaks late. It's just somebody has to be the last of the late breakers.
Oh.
Which also means two different things. If you're the last of the late breakers, that means you pulled ahead of somebody and you passed them, or that means you fucked up and now you're like going off into the runoff area.
Yeah, could be good or bad.
So yeah, this week they have a race at Mugello, which they've never raced at before.
Oh, all right.
It's a very famous racetrack, like it's in video games all the time, and mostly it's famous for MotoGP.
Yeah.
So this is the first time they have a race car, and oh man. So it's a very curvy track, but most of the corners, these F1 cars, flat out, like no braking. And so they say because there's a lot of left to right turns that like their necks are going to be hurting for like the next couple of weeks from this race.
Yeah.
But like they compared the laps that went on today versus what MotoGP does, and the fastest bike that's ever gone around this track is 30 seconds slower than what they did today.
Wow. And that's a bike.
Yeah. Also, just looked really cinematic because you just see the mountains off in the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the Tuscan Grand Prix, which somebody made a good meme of it where they had they made like a photo of the Tuscan Grand Prix and it says Tuscan Grand Prix and then it's Tuscan Raiders driving pod races on Tatooine. And then
I'd pay to see that.
And then the headline says, "This is the correct Tuscan Grand Prix, right?" So yeah, unfortunately, it was another Mercedes 1-2 with Red Bull right behind them 3-4. So this might be a boring race, but it looks nice and picturesque. Gasly, unfortunately, was like he came in like I don't know, he was like 16th place. I don't know. He was like 4 or 5 in the free practices, and they changed something for qualifying. I guess it fucked up his run. So.
Oh, okay.
Poor bastard.
I mean, he'll make it up. That's what he does. That's why he's the most exciting person to watch because he actually races people in these fucking races. And then the other news that happened is that Sergio Perez is out at Racing Point.
Oh, okay.
And Sebastian Vettel is in. So next year, Sebastian Vettel will be at what will change to Aston Martin Racing.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like so it's a good get for them. It's sad for Sergio Perez because he really doesn't deserve that because the only reason this team still exists is because of him. Because when their original owner was incited on fraud and was running away from the authorities, he he had to like file an injunction against the team to basically like keep it from bankruptcy to allow Lawrence Stroll to buy the team to keep the team alive. So this team only exists because of Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
And now they're kicking him out. So it's sad, but it should be good for Sebastian Vettel, champion driver. He's going to get a better car than what Ferrari has this year, because next year the cars are probably going to be basically the same. So, but 2022, that's when shit gets crazy. That's when the new specs come in and they make the new cars. So
Ground effect cars.
yeah, and you have the spinning cap. So that'll probably make it much closer racing. Either that or Mercedes are just more clever than everybody else and they'll figure it out. Yeah, it's that is F1. That's the F1 update.
Okay.
All right. You want to talk about The Last Wish?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we read this. This is now. I don't know, how does this fall in the books? Is this the first story?
This is like a collection of short stories, which I don't know when they were written.
Okay.
But it is a collection. And it's weird because I believe these were written first, but the English release is kind of weird because so like a different company does essentially the B team did the translations for this, and the action and like the full on books, which don't happen till the third book, are like the A team translations.
Okay.
So the first two books as an English release are short story books. So this one and the next one are short stories, and then the third book I believe is actually just like the full on books.
Okay.
After that, but I don't know. I thought I could not spot any weird thing with the translation. I thought this was an excellent translation, but also I have no idea of the source material.
Right.
Like I don't know how Polish, translates oddly, but this seemed really. The only thing I saw, because I listened to an audiobook, so I didn't know a lot of what people are complaining about is in the regular book. Apparently, the spelling for a lot of things are quite different, and people were put off by that. But it's only not in comparison to later on books. It's in comparison to the video games.
Okay.
So that was a weird nitpick. Like, the translation's weird because they spell things differently.
Polish is basically a Slavic language with heavy French and Germanic influences.
Okay.
So it sounds like, the Slavic version of English. Well, okay.
But yeah, this is a collection of short stories. I think it does a really good job of kind of building the universe while not getting too in depth into things.
Yeah. It mainly, it talks about what Geralt does and who he is and some of the stuff he goes through. But I recognize a lot of these stories from the Witcher Netflix series.
Yeah, I think almost all of them are in the first season, except for, was that like half bear guy who could magically control the house? That was essentially the Beauty and the Beast story, but kind of flipped. Was that in this?
I don't remember that one being in the series.
No, that wasn't in the first series. The only other one that wasn't was, it kind of was the elf storyline where they kind of get captured and get beaten up. That was kind of reminiscent of the field, god, the one they're worshiping, giving offerings to.
Yeah, that's where you get the song, the throw a coin, you're a witcher. That's that one episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in there.
But it was different in a way. It was just all they contained in the village, and it was him trying to pacify the guy in the field, basically, without killing him.
Yeah.
So, they changed that up a little bit, but basically it's still the same story.
And none of the Cersei stuff is in here, except for they here it's like in the TV show, it's kind of like him getting like sort of not necessarily ownership of it's Cersei, right? That's the
Yeah.
kid, yeah. he does it purposely because like there's no more Witchers and he wants to train a Witcher, and he said like the only way a Witcher can be trained is they have to be like a child of like fate,
Destiny. Yeah.
And then the TV show, they just kind of make it like Geralt just kind of throws away. It's like, well, then I enact the law of surprise, and he's just like, and then that's like, she's pregnant, and it's like, oh fuck. He's like, well, I don't intend to marry your baby. I don't know, which is kind of funner.
Yeah.
I think what this, I'd say the video, I came about the way that this author absolutely does not way. Andrzej Sapkowski.
Yeah.
I came about the way he would probably least prefer it, which is I played the video games first, then I watched the TV show, and now I've read the book. So that's probably the least way he wants it, because he hates the video games, but mostly because they made a lot of money, and he didn't, because he didn't believe in the video games. He just thought, oh, here's a cool paycheck, nothing will happen because of this, and it was $100 million franchise later. But I think, like, to me, all these adaptations are faithful to the book.
Yeah, I've never played the video games, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, the video games can't use any. They can use the history, but like all the video game stories are original to themselves.
Okay.
So they can't like create canon. They all exist after the books.
All right.
So that was a thing there. But yeah, I thought the video game's excellent. The TV show is pretty good, and this book is pretty good. But I don't know. Let you guys what you liked about it.
Well, for me, I watched the TV shows because I didn't know anything about it really. I thought, oh, is this a video game? I thought this was a video game adaptation of a TV show first. And I was like, oh, or a TV show adaptation of video games. Like, well, those never work. When I watched the series, I was like, oh, this is like dense. There's like a history here. And then, so I've never played the video game, so I read this book and it's like, oh, seems a little more engaging now. It's well written. The stories are well constructed. It doesn't give me too much information about, because I'm not a big fan of fantasy anymore. This is a fantasy book I've gone through in a long time actually, and it's like, yeah, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I generally bounce off of almost any fantasy stuff, but I guess because I'm more familiar with the universe, like everything just kind of like flowed really well for me.
Yeah.
And I thought the narrator did a good job, although if you look on the reviews, people hated the narrator. I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah.
One guy cited his acting style was like William Shatner, but I listened at like 1.4 speed, which is barely imperceptible as things being faster. It just is. So it basically cuts an hour out of a book. But okay. So maybe, huh?
I've never done that, but okay.
Yeah. So I think maybe because I listened to it at 1.4 speed, that it cut out some of his pauses or something. But
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
I liked his accents he's did. So maybe the guy was from Europe and it's like, oh, these accents are all bullshit and all wrong. And like to me, it's like, they work.
Yeah, it's fine for me. Yeah. Geralt of Rivia is a great Scotsman. So.
The only thing I thought was weird is at first they call him Dandelion in the audiobook, and I only know him as Dandelion, so I didn't know like which one was correct.
Oh, okay.
I would say like the interpretation of his character in the book seemed more accurate to the way he probably was intended to be written, but the show, like, he's not as I would say blusterous and also just crass all the time. Like, he never seems to shut up even when somebody's gonna kill him. So it's like yeah. I mean, I remember the character from the show. I thought being a little more cowardly than that, but maybe I'm just misremembering.
Well, the guy in the who was the actor? Jim. Who was the actor who played him?
Dandelion or The Witcher?
The Witcher.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. He was more of a recalcitrant, brooding Witcher. Whereas the Witcher in this book seemed more of a cynical, kind of an adventurer. And
I'd say I'd say both the TV show and the games are way darker.
Yeah,
but I think both of them, like maintain that kind of like whimsical, like fun,
Yeah.
then that's kind of that's a hard line to toe, to have like very serious, deadly things happen, but also have like fun with it. Like, and that's a hard thing to do, and I think this series does it. This series does it well.
Because that's how I thought Dandelion was in the show versus the book. Is like, well, here's a reason to laugh. Whereas in the book, it's almost like it's one kind of hard case character off of a foppish character, but they both seem fun. Whereas in the movies, it's like, no, the Witcher's just this brooding guy, and Dandelion's just almost like comic relief, kind of like some of the Hobbit, the sidekicks in Lord of the Rings, like the Hobbits. It's like, well, they're gonna do something fun.
And I thought the action was really well done, because they gave like really specific actions, but it was like done shortly, so you knew a lot of complex things were happening, but it was done in like 2 or 3 sentences. It was like very well done.
Yeah, like his showdown in the city with the people, the brigands that were going to take over the city and kill a bunch of people. It's like you knew he could kill all those people. It's just how could he kill all those people?
Yeah.
And the fight scene was really cool. It's like, oh yeah, he's going to win, but it's not going to come easy, and it's there's going to be a cost.
But like he gets all the action across in like a page. Like if I wrote that action scene, it would have been 15 pages of of description.
Yeah, the way the action flows is it's kind of like almost Geralt saying in his mind, like, well, I know I've got to be here to be there, and it's sort of, it's not like quite told from that perspective, but it comes across that way.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is what I reluctantly need to do to kill all these people as quickly as possible. And I need to throw a spell, and I need to, do this stuff, but it's never, it does come across. It's very easy to understand, and it's fairly snappy too.
Yeah.
It doesn't carry on. How long are these guys going to hammer away at each other with swords? Somebody fucking die. It's like, no, it's just pretty quick. Kind of reminiscent of the Stephen King gunslinger novels. It's like everyone thinks they can kick this guy's ass. They can't. He's going to kill everyone in town. But it's like, how's he going to do it? And then it reveals how. So,
Andrew, you were inspired to buy the next 2 books in the series.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first book, and I kind of want to see, because I kind of like sneak peek maybe at what's in store for season 2. Not that I want to ruin it or anything, but also like continuation. Are you more wanting to see it as a TV show than through the books? No, I want to see it equally through both. I mean, I want to read the books and see everything that it has to offer, but also see, I guess, what the show does. I think it had its own. I mean, I think shows or TV shows in general just tend to lower the scale dramatically as far as like the scale of the war, scale of the universe, because it's cheaper to produce, but also makes them come up with creative ways to change that to make it a better story or maybe a different story to just keep your interest too. So I'm interested to read, because I got the second book right now. I just ordered the third book today with my wireless charger. So I will probably get into the second book next week or so, as soon as I finish the Babylon's Ashes from Expanse.
Okay.
So, but no, I think the book really kind of let too the structure of the show, because they seem to leap around too, and nobody seemed confused by the book.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, you start a story like before it happens or after it happens, and you're kind of given some like prelude to like, oh, this is their relationship, and now it's on the rocks, and then you like go back in time to like see how they met in the first place.
Yeah, there's also a nice interlude thing where he's like battling this knight that's really pissed off at him for being there. And
was that the where he's like fighting some knight, Foltest Knight? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
I was confused. Like, what was happening there? Is that after he like cures the what the fuck was that? The kid that turns into a monster?
Oh, the Strigan or whatever.
Yeah, the Strigan.
It seemed like it was after it, but also like after he knows Yennefer and she's pissed at him and doesn't want anything to do with him. So it's like he seems to be at that temple to heal from the Striga, but also like it seems like he met Yennefer before that, which doesn't make any sense for the timeline for him meeting her after or during the genie or the Digen or whatever timeline. And I kind of like that they have sex in the inn while it's kind of crumbling around. Well, the genie is tearing up the town and shit. That was kind of funny. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay. So, I mean, timeline-wise, it seemed like, yeah, he's kind of there to heal, and he's got his payment, and trying to, like, oh, I'll give you these gems or whatever, and, you know, talk about these herbs in the cave and shit.
But how did he piss off Foltest? Like, why was that fight happening? I didn't pick
I literally think they just wanted him out because he's a Witcher, and, like, he's just not welcome everywhere.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't anything too, you know, that wasn't in keeping with the rest of the book, basically. Because I did like the little backstory part where he was talking about like the first time he ever like stepped in to like defend humans and try and be a hero, and then it just didn't turn out the way he wanted. And after that, he was like, "Yeah, that was just stupid. I'm not going to do that again." So, I mean, I like the whole Beauty and the Beast on its head type of storyline. I kind of wish that would have been an episode because I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I don't think it would have added a lot to the show necessarily, but it would have been cool.
So there's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is completely turned on its head here.
Yep.
Where like Snow White ends up in a gang, and she's potentially going to end the world for some reason. And she's trying to kill a wizard, and she has the mirror. And then there's the Beauty and the Beast. Is there other ones?
Can't think if the thing with the goat man is based on some kind of Greek mythology.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, they did also talk about trolls under bridges and them being okay with the troll under the bridge and shit. So,
yeah, that was a fun moment where they're like Geralt's like nobody wants to pay me to kill monsters anymore because people are like using monsters to their because like, it's like humans are just like overcoming monsters and magical things, but like. Yeah, you pay the troll because he repairs the bridge. Like, do you want to repair that bridge? It fucking works. Like, pay the troll.
Yeah. Like the magical world has essentially been conquered by people, and anything that's left like that, if it's not too dangerous, is like a tourist attraction. Or it's, no, we don't need Witchers anymore. This is you know, as long as there's not 1,000 trolls, we're okay. We can handle one or two.
no, it's just
the guy who wrote this book started out as an economist.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he kind of does throw some things in there about, well, change that currency for this. Because, you know, their currency is descending and this other currency is on the rise. You have a lot more money. People are always giving the Witcher, like, advice for what to do with his money and his jewels.
It also was nice at one point where before him and Dandelion or Dandelion or however you pronounce his name.
They in the book or in the narration it says Dandelion, but I always go Dandelion. But
yeah, I mean Dandelion makes more sense because that's how it's pronounced pretty much everywhere else. So
yeah, I think that's in the TV show and the game. I believe it's Dandelion, but I know Dandelion sounds more like less feminine, so I think people might go for that pronunciation.
But no, I mean like the little part in the town where he's like talking to the guy, like the maester whoever runs the town, and he's talking about like all these things. It's horrible. It's caused by demons and witches and ghosts. And he's like, and then Dandelion's like, oh, looks like you have a lot of work here. He's like, no, it's all fucking bullshit. just make it shit up and leave. It's just like, oh, it was kind of nice to see him like discern and like pick what he wanted to do, even though he was struggling for work.
Well, I also like the part where like the old lady's like reciting the book that can't be translated by humans, but she just knows stuff from it because that girl whispers it to her or something. I don't know. It's weird. And he's like, that book is wildly outdated. It's like, I will not be doing that for 3 shillings or whatever.
Yeah, because like it seems like the dumb guys are just kind of going off the pictures and shit in the book.
Yeah, because they can't understand the language, but they can like interpret the pictures, and it's passed down through time. But that girl, she's actually like an elf or whatever, so she actually knows the language. So there's a weird thing there.
Yeah.
No, it's just kind of interesting to see some of the differences between what the show picked. I mean, like they did pick the Striga, which was a really good episode, and they did pick, you know, like the elf story, but they changed up a little bit, I think, to make it work more within the bounds of the show. Because it's just kind of him like building up his legend basically with the coin, toss a coin to your Witcher, and coming through all these different hard, killing all these monsters and hard times, stuff like that.
And the Butcher of Blaviken, where he
Yep.
comes into town with the killed Kikimora.
And they did keep that part, but didn't they change the wizard's role in that episode, or was he the same exact way, where literally it was him just kind of like telling Geralt he'd pay for the female's corpse or whatever because she was cursed or some shit, that he said, go fuck off. I thought the relationship was different with the wizard in the show, but maybe
I think it's a bit more elaborate in the show because I think they then hook up that wizard with Yennefer somehow, because these wizards live for like thousands of years, but the timeline's weird in the show because there's 3 different timelines and you don't know it till the end of the show. Well, you suspect it. It's like, this is kind of weird. Things aren't lining up. And it's like, you're right.
Ever seen Lost?
But it was a really good book, and I enjoyed it, and I didn't think there was one part that I thought was like out of place or didn't fit.
Well, I mean, that's the helpfulness of a short story thing. But I mean, usually I'm not like big on short story collections because I like a through line narrative. But this actually, because it's building the world, like that's the through line narrative, is essentially like the history of this world and witchers and stuff. Yeah, it'll be interesting to actually get to like a full on Witcher novel, but I still got a collection of short stories to go through. So,
But all in all, a good book.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot shorter than I thought it would be too. As soon as I got it, I didn't look at the page description, so I thought it would be like 400 or 500 pages. I was like, oh, that was a really short read.
Yeah, like 280 pages or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a 10-hour audio book, so that was pretty short.
Oh, okay. Because I always forget. For some reason, every time we talk about books, then I always forget that you pretty much read, or not read. You pretty much listen or read audiobooks and don't really read a paper book anymore. Because I was thinking about like the narrator. Who the hell would complain about the narrator in the book? It was. I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just stupid.
I mean, we got the same information in different ways. It doesn't. We both got there. It's okay.
Yeah. But I kind of look forward, like maybe the angry dwarf at the end of the story will return in the second book. I have no idea what to expect because I didn't really look at any of the reviews of the synopsis of the book. Maybe it'll actually be like an actual like story that keeps going.
What's it called?
Here, let me look at it quick. I want to say it's like Storm of Swords or something like that, or something with swords in it.
Is that a Game of Thrones book?
No, it's
what's the Game of Thrones book?
Sword of Destiny.
Oh, Sword of Destiny.
And then the third book is Blood of the Elves. At least that's what it said on Amazon. Maybe that's out of order. I don't know. But that should be what's going on.
I believe that's because the American well, I guess something fucked up happened where like how the American release or the English release happened is they released The Last Wish, and then they did the first novel, and then they released the second short story thing, but they got it like backwards. So they've corrected it since. So now it'll say like Last Wish is like book 1, and then Sword of Destiny is book 2, and Blood of the Elves is book 3. But
okay.
It's corrected now, but it was fucked up in the initial translation and release.
Well, because like on Amazon, like they seem to really want to shove the whole buy every book down your throat more than buy the single book, even though they actually make less money that way. So, as soon as I bought the first book and then it started popping up like buy the series for $120 for all 9 or 10 books or whatever, and it's like, well, that's like $1 or $2 less per book than if you just sold me individually. But it keeps popping up all the time.
Are you getting hard copies or ebooks?
Oh, paperbacks.
Okay.
So, I mean, it seems, the ones I'm getting aren't the old style ones, like paperback covers, or they're all the new ones, like, check out the Netflix show. And so it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, excited for more Witcher.
Well, I thought the anime was supposed to be out by now, or they delay that one.
I didn't know they were making an anime.
Yeah, there was supposed to be an anime to bridge the gap between season 1 and 2 that was supposed to focus only on Dandelion.
Oh, okay.
So I've never heard of it coming out because the second season doesn't come out until next year. So
yeah, Oh yeah, they canceled Altered Carbon. So
Oh man.
Shock.
Boo. Oh wait, no, I don't care.
I mean, I kind of cared, but also I didn't finish the second season because Nathan told me it wasn't necessarily terrible. Okay, I thought you said it was just okay.
I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't. Like the first season was actually hard to get into until it found its place, and then it was really good. They actually made changes from the book that was like, what are they doing? It's like, oh, okay, I can go along with this now. But yeah, the second one was just like zero acting and just not. It didn't draw you in like the first one. But the problem with the Altered Carbon stuff is they changed it around so much that it's like those books were fine by themselves.
It was the one with the Edgar Allan Poe motel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't get into that show.
Yeah, it's a little weird. The book's a lot better.
Yeah, we both read the book, but I forgot most of the book. So then the TV show was like, I delighted to the TV show because I forgot most things. Because that was actually a book I actually read, so maybe that's why I didn't recall things. And it's one of our famous, well, not as much as we can be famous, is one of our famous lost episodes. When we reviewed Altered Carbon. So yeah, there's like so many things like, did that happen in the book? And I just couldn't remember. And then Nathan's like, no, this is why it's stupid, because they did a lot of stupid things with the envoys. Where they were like almost like a religious cult instead of like a calculated war machine created for companies or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the Takashi Kovacs in Altered Carbon was a much darker, more sinister person than you could imagine in the TV show. But in the TV show, he was pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, those are just something where they shouldn't. They just, I don't know. I didn't care for the adaptation. But I did watch the first one. Kind of redeemed itself the first season, but then the second season they drifted even further, and it was like, oh, okay, this is like. It was kind of like the weakest season of Battlestar Galactica type, where they're just wandering around talking about things and shooting each other. It's like, okay, you're starting to lose me here. I don't know where this is going. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me they didn't pick that up for a third season. Surprised they picked it up for a second season.
I mean, usually Netflix will at least do 2 seasons and they'll cut ties. But also, like that was, I believe that was the most expensive show they've ever made. So,
oh, I could believe it. Yeah.
Oh, really? I guess I didn't know that was their most expensive show.
Yeah, I think it was like $120 million for the first season.
Oh, Jesus.
They started doing like the Westworld was some of the most expensive stuff that HBO did.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to hear that because I thought it would be Game of Thrones, but.
Yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones was super expensive, but Westworld was even more expensive.
Yeah, and over a much more compressed time period, too.
Well, I guess I thought maybe The Witcher was up there on Netflix's most expensive shows, because the CGI wasn't that great in some of the episodes, but to be honest, like the location shooting and some of the actors' pay, I thought it was high.
Oh, yeah, it's an expensive show for them, but I imagine just the CGI alone for Altered Carbon probably added the cost to it, so... because obviously The Witcher has more star power with Henry Cavill than
Altered Carbon does.
Altered Carbon does with Joel McKinnon, or I can't remember his name, something like that.
Yeah.
And they completely changed all the actors in the second season.
Yeah, which
they did.
Normal.
Well, it's in the series that makes sense because Takashi Kovacs is a sort of a mental entity that is in widely different bodies in every story, so he's never in the same body, but he is the same person.
Well, because I was about to say, I know they do body switching a lot in that show, or at least from the first episode, I know they could do that, so I kind of figured that's maybe what you were talking about. But like I never really got into that show just because it didn't seem like it didn't have aspects that weren't cool in it, but I just like, I don't care.
That's fine. I don't know. There's a lot of shows. Like I still haven't watched the 3rd season of Ozark, and that was like one of my favorite shows, and I just for some reason haven't. I hear, what is it? Raised by Wolves is good, and I hear, fucking Lovecraft Country is good. Haven't watched that yet.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that came out, to be honest. The new Dune trailer looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, I did like that.
Oh, and
I
I
know
saw,
when Hans Zimmer takes a Pink Floyd song.
oh yeah, I saw an article that like pissed me off for no reason. So of course I didn't read it. It was just the headline, where it said something like, "Dune trailer introduces new generation to famous rock song." I was like, "Fuck you." I think Pink Floyd can
Yeah, they can carry it.
they
on
can
their own.
advertise for themselves. They don't need Dune trailer to introduce a new generation.
Yeah, nobody's doesn't know who Pink Floyd is in at least some of their songs. But it was cool to hear it. When I was hearing it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's amazing." It actually makes sense though with the themes of Dune. I would have picked "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," but that's just me.
Yeah, it looks good, so I guess I'm impressed and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean,
you have more of a
yeah, I'm very bought into Dune.
yeah.
The Dune books, and I've read those constantly, almost as much as I read Tolkien. So,
I don't know. Is there
yeah.
anything you can infer from the trailer?
The early reports of how they really like David Lynch's Dune were true, because they've kept that look.
Yeah,
Only makes sense because that movie was wonderfully visualized from that book.
yeah.
Even though, as it turned out, it was terrible to watch, but it looked cool.
I never remember like hating Dune, but I don't think I've ever like sat down and watched it from beginning to end. But I was like watching pieces of Dune.
Well, the thing is, to make Dune properly, which maybe Denis Villanueva, however they say it, I don't know. Maybe he'll get it right, because this is going to be a multi-part thing. This isn't going to be all one shot. They're not going to try to tell Dune in 90 minutes, which is a very good idea. If David Lynch, if anyone had the vision in the 80s, and you really didn't have a vehicle for this, where you could have made like a 3-part movie that just looked like that, but with better adaptation of the film, it would have probably been one of the greatest things ever made. But from what I see, it looks pretty good. They're not cutting a lot of corners. It's well visualized. So that's important with Dune, because Dune's almost as much the tapestry as much as the story. Actually, the story is fairly simple. It's just the complicated way you get there. 'Cause it's just kind of a retelling of the Jesus story.
Yeah,
Drugs and space. And what was it? What is
Spice.
it? No, what are the but what's the key elements of Dune? It's like, it's the Christ story, it's drugs, and it's like telekinesis, psychic ability. It's all those things merged. Very much Frank Herbert, very much a fan of the drug scene of the 60s and 70s, and thought that drugs will lead us to the evolution of mankind.
So I was listening to a podcast, and they reviewed the movie Grand Prix from John Frankenheimer.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a movie from 1966. So I was like, I didn't have a lot of high hopes, because there's not a lot of movies from the 60s that I can like watch other than like Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah.
Man, holy shit, this movie. He shot the shit out of these cars.
Oh yeah.
Because it follows F1. It was like actual F1 cars, and they like inserted themselves into F1 races, and shot the movie. Man, he shot the fuck out of this movie. It was. I mean, John Frankenheimer's good at shooting car chases, but you watch this movie, it's like, oh, this is what everybody stole it from.
Yeah.
Now the story isn't really there. You don't really care about the story, but like, man, watching these cars races, like, that was something. Now it's also amazing. I haven't seen the rest of it. I saw the first race with Monaco, and just seeing the very lax safety standards. Like, their safety standards is like, here's a corner where somebody could potentially fly off. Let's just put up a waist-high barrier that people can stand behind.
Watch the cars come right at them, hoping.
And I was like, again, another stuff too, where it's like, I think it was in 51, Le Mans, like a car just like blew up And that guy died immediately. But then, like, all the resulting fire and debris from that car wreck killed 72 people in the grandstands.
Oh wow. Okay.
I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's a high count.
Yeah. And then there's another F1 one like that too, and like just like killed like 50 people in the grandstands. I was like, Jesus Christ. But
yeah, love their and they were probably racing those cars that just looked like it had like the dog box on the front with the snout.
yeah.
Big open V12 engine in the back, and
Yep.
yep. Yeah, those were cool. Those are cool looking cars. There's people that race those as vintage racing. I don't know how they keep them running, but it's more rich guys, you know.
Oh, I think the wreck I'm thinking of, it happened at Monza. Because do you remember during the race, there's like kind of like a bridge that they drive under?
Yeah.
So that bridge is actually like a curved track that they used to use, but they don't use it currently.
Okay.
And they used to drive on it, and it was like, high speed, but because it's curved, you could go even faster, and those cars would just like fly off that and kill people. So that's
They're on an elevated platform,
yeah,
up in the air and flying off.
yeah. So yeah, that's why they don't use that anymore.
Yeah, doesn't sound a good thing.
But that road is in the movie. Like I haven't seen that scene yet, but it's in the movie. But, and it's really cheap on Amazon. It's like $3 to rent, and it was like $5 to buy. I was like, well, fuck it, buy the movie.
Yeah.
Now I have it. Anyways,
Let's see. Trying to look that up.
what Grand Prix?
Yeah, the worst there was a Le Mans 24 hours of Le Mans where 83 people got killed.
Oh, is that the 51 one?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. 1955.
Oh, Jesus, even more.
Is that what he needed to have your will in order before you went to an F1 race?
Oh, you literally had. I mean, these cars were essentially road cars with giant engines in them. I mean, they were just spectacular disasters.
Remember,
I know Le Mans has had a few.
yeah.
NASCAR's come close.
Yeah, it's usually like the tires like flying in the stands, but now they have those really tall, kind of like curved inward fences that like catch tires pretty well.
Well, NASCAR, because they're high curved tracks, they that's why they started putting those flaps on them when they spin around backwards. It slams to the ground, because they almost had a guy go over those fences.
Yeah.
He spun around and then flipped up into the air, and it ended up it crashed and it killed some people, but it crashed into the first area. But the fence broke most of the speed. The driver walked away, but after that, like the next year, they had those flaps, and also that's when NASCAR was getting up over 200 miles an hour, that's insane for those cars. Because those cars they are very boxy cars, and they just become a sail.
Yeah.
They become a lifting wing at some point.
Quote unquote stock cars.
Stock cars. Yeah, I think that was in the late 80s when NASCAR was at its fastest. And then when the one guy died.
Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, that introduced the Hans as being a standard thing, and
Yeah.
because that didn't really look like a bad crash. It was like, oh, he hit the wall, and then it's like, oh, he's dead. Broke his neck. But yeah, that was back in the 50s and 60s, it was crazy. And they were using fuel that was so combustible. Let's put that in a metal fuel container. Let it boil. And they were spilling fuel all over the place.
I'm a World War II vet. I don't care.
Yeah, those guys in the 50s are like, death? Yeah. Yep, it's a thing.
Let's see how close we can get to it.
It happens.
Oh, we got this close and we laughed our way away.
Those are some of those British racers that like flew fighter planes with 2 weeks training in the Battle of Britain. It's like, yeah, let's try this now. Now that's where like a lot of the hot rod culture came from. This is just guys that had worked on giant military engines. It's like, what happens when we put the biggest engine we can find into the smallest little box body? Let's take a Model T and just chop everything off of it, and put a giant engine in it. Like that's what hot rods came from. Did anyone have any of those Merlin engines from those? We got hundreds of thousands of those Mustang fighters. Let's put a Merlin engine in one of these cars. Actually, a lot of people didn't do that. Jay Leno does stuff like that. Jay Leno has a few dollars to spend.
Yeah, surprised how rich he is. I know he hasn't worked for a while. I know he made quite a bit of money, but
I heard like
he hasn't touched his Tonight Show money yet.
Yeah,
really?
all his Tonight Show money was just saved, and then all his when he did like comedy, he would do comedy tours, even though like it wasn't advertised, but like it would be like in Las Vegas or whatever. And
he's a Vegas regular, still is.
And that's where all his spending money comes from, is his stand-up dates, because that's all the money he needed. But also like on top of that, like that also bought him all his cars, but he saved all his Tonight Show money, which is millions of dollars,
hundreds of millions.
Well, because the guy's named Fluffy, the Hispanic comedian, the bigger guy.
Iglesias, something like that.
Yeah, like his VW bus like garage where he has like all this stuff, even a VW bus tricked out into an aquarium. Like he has like all this shit like flat, like certified, like hey, it's totally restored and it's polished new, like it just came off the line. And it's like he makes that much goddamn money, and that's a guy that's like, hey, he's popular and he's definitely had his time, but he never had like a show or anything.
Well, he's like one of those like Russell Peters. He's like one of those guys where it's like they're huge internationally, but they're not necessarily like huge in the States, but they have like their following, and it's very lucrative.
Because you told me Jay Leno. Oh, sorry.
Well, it's not necessarily like he's like coming to Cedar Rapids to do a show. Like, no, he's gonna do a show in like Southern California where fucking 5,000 people come to the show and 2,000 people sneak into the show. Like that's the kind of money you're talking about.
Well, because when you're telling me like Jay Leno still does Vegas to this day, it's like people want to pay to see his comedy. Like, I mean, I know everybody's got an audience, but at the same time, it's like I never.
Even when he was on TV, I didn't get it, but it was just old people. Like it was comforting. Jay Leno comforted them somehow. So for him to tell the same like Monica Lewinsky OJ jokes for 25 years.
Well, he has a net value of $500 million.
Jesus Christ.
That's a lot of old people money.
That's a lot of saving. Well, it's also licensing your name to things and doing commercials, and because he used to do stuff like that, and just wouldn't leave. Hey, we want you off to the night show. Great, I'll be in the lobby. Keep sending the checks. Like, well, we can't pay him and Conan O'Brien. Okay, come on back.
I remember when vaguely Jay Leno was going to have an acting career, and he did like this kind of vaguely serious cop show with Pat Morita.
Yeah, and he paid to have. He bought the rights to it, so it can never be shown.
Oh no, I've seen, it's been places you can watch it, but
you can. I thought he owned that movie, so no one could watch it.
Well, at least I've seen it before. Maybe you can't now, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah,
Here, let me look it up. Pat Morita and Jay Leno.
I believe that was before he was Mr. Miyagi, so people knew him as like, oh, he's just an Asian Southern California dude. He's not Japanese.
Oh, he was on Happy Days too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jay Leno, it's one of the top things on top search results for that. Collision Cruise trailer to 1989. You can at least watch the trailer.
Okay. To check that out at some time. Sure, it's great.
Apparently, everybody had to come to Detroit in the 80s. It's like, what do you get when you get a Japanese special agent coming to Detroit to shake things up?
It's supposed to be like a reverse Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the white guy's the funny guy.
And they go to Detroit instead of California.
I remember the joke. What was it? A Hawaii 5-0. The one, and this was the 70s version. It was kind of a running gag. It's like, so you're going on vacation? Yeah. Where are you going? Detroit. Like, who goes to Detroit on vacations? People that live in Hawaii. it was always a running gag on the show. Like every time these guys had vacation or they were writing them off the show for a few episodes for whatever reason. Like, yeah, they're going to Detroit. Vacation. It's like, oh, okay.
When's Ted
Wow,
getting
that's-
back from vacation?
This movie looks quite horrible. There's already like a fight scene in like a bowling alley / restaurant, and a bunch of like shitty action scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the reason he didn't become an actor. But I remember,
Yeah,
I remember it being more impressive because I have very low standards for Jay Leno. So I remember it impressed me more than the low standards I have for him. So
Let's see, is it available on Amazon? Called Collision Course. Prime Video, $0 in HBO trial. Well, I can watch it on HBO.
okay,
The only way I discovered Jay Leno, the only and I like about him is his passion for these kind of obscure cars and the knowledge he has.
yeah,
I watch because I'm subscribed to his show, and I watch that. But as far as his comedy and stuff goes, it's like, yeah, that predates me by like 30 years. That's not really my kind of humor, but I do like his passion for these cars.
Well, did he used to be a mechanic? Though, like he worked on Rolls Royces and shit like
Yeah,
that.
he was a luxury car mechanic and delivery guy.
Okay.
Colin, I can buy you either a VHS copy or a DVD copy for $10.
Does anybody even have a VCR anymore?
Yeah, where do you get VCR?
I threw 3 of my VCRs away.
Were they working or not working?
They were working.
Oh, you might have actually been able to sell those for quite a bit of money because people actually fucking want those.
I don't know about that because I still have a fuck ton of VHS tapes that no one offloaded from me. So
No. Oh, I haven't heard of this movie in a long time. Celtic Pride. With Damon Wayans and Dan Aykroyd.
yeah.
I haven't seen that movie in forever. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I came here in '98, and I had a DVD player in '99, and so yeah, I haven't had a VCR in over 20 years. I don't even have. I have one DVD player now. Everything else is just. Well, I just don't. It's just a bunch of shit that collects stuff. I want all my movie collection to be wiped out in the EMP strike. All in the cloud.
I can do a local server.
That's true. In a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be my next home improvement project. Make my home into a Faraday cage. Sure, the association would love that.
Well, you know.
Speaking of
Sorry.
association, we have a big dumpster in front of our house right now because we're doing a lot of cleanup and clearing, and usually my attempts at home improvement involve throwing away a lot of shit. And we were hearing these booming sounds. Stacy came to the door and she's like, "Nathan, someone's throwing something in our dumpster." So of course I grabbed my AR and ran outside. No, I'm kidding. We walked outside to see if someone was throwing shit in the dumpster because it sounded like someone was pounding. You know how those things sound when you're throwing shit into it.
Yeah.
We went outside. It wasn't that. It was just this booming sound from off in the distance. But it wasn't like a boom, like an explosion. It was like low frequency bass type sounds.
Yeah.
And we went driving around like, what is that? And people were standing out in front of their houses like, hey, you guys know what this is? No one knows what it is. And so we have no idea what it was. I said, well, it's probably someone preparing for the election. Because you've heard. Remember those recordings I had? Like I was driving
gunshot-
around and
yeah,
just
the
started
gunfire.
walking around, and there were people shooting guns, like in the middle of the night. This was from years ago. You remember that, Conlon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of shit that goes on around here, and you just randomly do because we live right near where the country starts and the city stops.
Yeah.
So we're like right on that line, and it's like what you just don't know what the hell's going on anymore. And to hear booming in the night that brings people out of their houses, like it's not just us, a lot of people. It's like, yeah, what the fuck is going on?
I know there's a weird sound that happens in Cedar Rapids. I don't know what the fuck it is. But it's usually around night. You'll just hear this like boom.
Yeah,
It's like
that.
I mean, it's like something, the city or a light injury or one of the various chemical plants around here is doing something.
Yeah.
But I never see it happen. You just hear it. It's like, that's not close, but that's super fucking loud, and it's in the middle of the night. That's disturbing.
Well, the weirdest thing I had around here, well, I didn't have it around here, but I mean, this was one where like Joe Rogan took a camera crew, was that the Zug Island hum that happens around here. And nobody knew what that was, but it was so low frequency, it was making people sick. But because see, they have the largest functioning blast furnace in the world is on Zug Island, which is little island in kind of the middle of the Detroit River. And Zug Island, incidentally, is where they make all the alloys and stuff for stealth shit. So you can't get out there. Like if you try to go there on a boat, like there's security guards. Like you got to get the fuck out of here type. It's part of U.S. Steel, and for many years, they would start something up out there that would be like whoa, and you would just, but it would you could like feel it inside you. That's how people described it. It stopped finally, but they suspected it was just one of the pipes coming off that blast furnace. When they fired it up, it would create such a weird temperature differential that's what air was sounding like being forced out of that thing. When it's like 4,000 degrees at whatever the core of that is, and one of the chimneys, it was like that's what happens when you push air that hot out through like a concrete pipe. It makes a sound like that because they're supposed to put noise breakers on the top of those, but that place is a hell. I don't know if you want to look up something fun. Look up Zug Island, Detroit. It's like, it's like something out of fucking Blade Runner. It's absolutely nightmare. Actually, that whole area I work in is like something out of Blade Runner. It's all that 1930s tech just still being used.
Oh, then come to my plant. That's what we do all day.
Well, they have actual dynamos, like the original old school dynamos, sitting on giant, like, even those like railroad ties. They took them out of something years ago and they just let them sit out there. I mean, just solid like brass body dynamos from like 100 years ago. And it's one of the reasons why we can't park near the building. And I'm kind of like, can we pull the fucking 18th century dynamos out of here and maybe have some parking? Like, what are you guys doing with those? Obviously nothing. There's probably like $100,000 of copper sitting there. Just leave them out. The crackheads will carry it away like ants. It'll be gone in a night. But yeah, I went up and looked at those, and it had the old script Ford writing. It said property Ford Motor Company, Edison Electric, and it said it was a dynamo model, whatever. You know how long it's been since we've used dynamos to produce power? I mean, it's very, very old, and it's cool looking, but it probably weighs more than my house. It's like, and it's just sitting there, just rotting away.
Well, you can only. I mean, I don't know why Ford doesn't take the scrap value either, because, I mean, they should have a long time ago, but maybe they just have it as an asset.
I think those are probably going to go to a museum. But, because they're not going to decay sitting outside because they're just copper and brass.
Yeah.
So they're probably waiting to send it somewhere. But, it's still it's kind of annoying to see that stuff sitting around. And I have to fucking walk 1.5 miles or it's like a half mile into the building. But it's still annoying every morning to have that walk. Time to go to work. Dun, dun, dun.
So we didn't watch a movie this week?
You want to talk about it next week? Because I've watched it. It's actually a good movie.
I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot to say, but like Nathan, why don't you
if you want to talk about it this week, we can.
Oh, because we got Dead Sea Resort, or no, Red Sea Diving Company next week.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Oh, I heard it was a bad movie, so okay, well, good.
It's a cool idea. It's not the best movie ever made.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, The Angel. It's an Israeli-American spy thriller based on real life.
Well, sorry, I was going to say I'm going to exit the conversation because I have nothing to say and I need to go to bed.
Okay.
So sorry. Sorry, guys. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, and I hope you get your leak fixed.
Well, I'm working on it.
All right.
But thanks. Bye.
Bye. All right. So The Angel is think I already said this.
Yeah, Israeli-American
film.
spy movie.
Spy, kind of, yeah. Kind of a spy movie. It's
Spy movie, or what do you call that? Double agent movie.
Yeah, double agent. Yeah, it's set. It's during the. It's after the 6-Day War, which, to provide context, is when the Egypt and all the is basically the Arab League tried to conquer Israel and got repulsed and lost a bunch of land. This mainly deals with Egypt, and because Egypt lost the Sinai Peninsula in that war, and that's when that's when Palestine essentially got taken over in the West. But all this fun stuff that's still going on today.
Yeah.
This was kind of the origins of it. So this is set in the early 1970s. The main character, Asharaf, is he's a young man. His name's Asharaf Marwan. Every other guy I know here is named Marwan. But anyway, in this he is the son-in-law of Gamal Nasser, who was the president of Egypt at that time. And if you don't know anything about Nasser, he's the guy who overthrew the monarchy in Egypt and basically made himself president. Was actually considered a very progressive leader for that time and that place in Egypt, even though he still wanted to destroy Israel, because all the Arabs did. And but him and Nasser and his son-in-law don't get along. His son-in-law, Asharaf's being educated at the London, I forget what school in London, in England. But anyway, they had a dinner meeting and they opened up, and he tells Nasser that, maybe we shouldn't siding with the Soviets, the Arab League siding with the Soviets to invade Israel. We got our asses handed to us. He says because the Soviet system sucks and it's going to go bankrupt. He was saying this in the early 70s. This guy, he's like, Israelis are backed exclusively by America, which he said is a system that will last hundreds of years longer than the Soviet one. We're on the wrong side of this. We're never going to win against the Israelis as long as we're fighting America in the background, because they'll just crush us every time. And Nasser's like, no, I'm not going to deal with the Americans. The Russians have always been good friends. They gave us a bunch of military equipment on the cheap. He didn't say it like that, but that's what they did. And everyone else, Syria, all the other countries in the Arab League would turn against him if he started breaking bread with Israel and America. So he basically tells his son-in-law he's an idiot and don't ever speak at my dinners again. He's kind of rebukes him.
But it's okay, because he's gonna die of a heart attack soon.
Yes, but soon Nasser dies at the age of 52 of a heart attack, and then that's when so him and his family and meanwhile,
well, before that happens, he what's his name, the nephew or whatever, Asharaf calls into the Israeli embassy to basically trying to tell Nasser's plan to them.
Yeah,
but
because he's married to Nasser's daughter, one of his daughters, and he tells his daughter, "You need to divorce this guy. He's an idiot." And Nasser hears all that, and Ashraf hears all this, and he gets really frustrated. And then he goes to a weird party where basically it seems like the one lady she's an actress who might also have connections to British intelligence. It's never really,
it implied that she's like running some sort of whorehouse or just like or swinging company or whatever.
Yeah, basically it's a whorehouse, but we're recording everything, which may or may not be used as leverage against people, later on. We don't know. It's because her name's Diana Ellis, and they act really sexy towards each other, but he's really not cheating on his wife with her. He's just interested in her, and he's kind of in a bad situation with his father-in-law and the stresses of his marriage. And so then he calls the Israeli embassy, and he gives his name and says he wants to speak to the ambassador. And of course, they don't just connect anyone to the ambassador. And it's like, well, who are you? What do you want? And then he gets mad and hangs up. And then he's in school a while later, and these two, tough-looking guys show up and inform him that Nasser's died, and now Anwar Sadat who was the vice president, has now become the president of Egypt. And So, and Ashraf, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. And him and his wife are concerned. It's like, oh, this is going to be like a typical. We're just going to be pushed aside and maybe killed. So he worms his way into the Sadat government and actually wins Sadat's favor by basically revealing out all these guys that work for Nasser. They're a bunch of crooks. They're stealing money. This is why. This is how. Turns out he was right. And he finds information, though, by breaking into his dead father-in-law's desk. And he has all this. He always gets information like that. And
I also set up early on, like in one of the his lectures he's at. They talk about that one guy who was a double agent.
He created the fake spy ring to basically lead people into the right situation. And then he's also reading his son a book about, the boy who cried wolf. And so that kind of weaves into the storyline. And then when he goes, finally, he's in good with Sadat, but then he's going back to London to finish his education. And then the Mossad finally is like, hey, we remember you. And he's like, nah, I'm not. And they play him a recording of his phone call. It's like, yeah, I think we're going to want to talk to you. So he meets with his, he has his handler. What's the guy's name? Terry or Alex or something? Something like that. Yeah, Alex. Okay, here.
I don't think I actually ever heard his name. I was like fast forward watching through the scenes. It's like that guy. Guy kind of sounds Irish, but kind of looks like Egyptian. And like,
yeah, he's a Mossad agent, and that's his contact. And then he starts passing information on about attacks that the Egyptians are going to make, which they're not going to make, but he's trying to shake the Israelis up. So he wants them to come to the table, essentially. And then as that's going on, then the Israeli shoots down basically a Libyan civilian passenger plane, because we meet Gaddafi in this movie.
Yeah.
Which he seems about as crazy as he was in real life in this movie, because Ashraf gets sent to talk to him as an envoy from Sadat from Egypt, and because Gaddafi wants to just attack all kinds of Israeli targets, and he talks Sadat and is like, yeah, don't do this because it'll just get really unstable if he starts doing that. And so then he basically tells him that, like, yeah, he goes to Gaddafi and says, yeah, we're going to support you, whatever you need. And then he back channels all the information about anything Gaddafi's going to do to the Mossad. So he stops
was that bit where he's like giving them a rocket that's not going to work to shoot down a passenger plane in Israel?
Yeah, essentially he sabotages this RPG or whatever it is.
Oh wait, they're in Italy, but they're just going to shoot down a passenger plane just for
going to shoot down an El Al plane bound to Israel.
Okay.
And he makes sure that the missile doesn't work, and these guys get shot to death by the security forces in Italy. So yeah, it was really dangerous because he actually delivered the fucking missile and then sabotaged the attack, and because he was right there with them, and he's like, I gotta go, because that's how the movie opens. These guys are at the end of a runway pulling out a rocket launcher. He's like, hey, I gotta go, and then the story goes back.
Yeah, and like the poster on Netflix of the show is just an airplane taking off, and it's like, what's going on here?
It almost happened.
Yeah.
But and this is all true story, essentially, by the way, too. This isn't fiction. Nobody knows how true it is, because as we get along in the movie, we find out, there's no one's really claiming anything. But this guy is honored as a hero in both Israel and Egypt, which is weird because those countries essentially hate each other. But this guy, for some reason, is seen as a hero in both countries for different.
It draws parallels to that one guy who was like he had like a Nazi medal and like
he had like an Iron Cross and an Order of the British Empire.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, this guy goes back and forth. and because he gains the trust of the Mossad, and then the Yom Kippur War starts, and I think that starts in 74, 73 or something.
Yeah. Well, this is like the third time he's warned them of an attack, and they don't.
And this time it's real.
Yeah, but they don't believe him because that's the whole Boyo cried wolf thing.
Yeah. Well, they don't believe him, but they also kind of set up a framework in case it's right, so it sort of stabilized their losses a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in history, after the first war, the first big one, the 6-Day War, we gave Israel nuclear weapons, and a lot of people didn't know that. And during the Yom Kippur War, they were very close to putting those on planes and using them because they thought they were going to be overrun. But it turns out it didn't. And anyway, so that happens, and then the Mossad wants to talk to him again, and then Sadat and Begin sit down, and they basically sign essentially a non-aggression treaty between Egypt and Israel, but they don't get any of the other countries to go along with it. But Sadat is willing to go along with it because, like he said at the end of the movie, he gave some speech about, Egypt essentially is a poor country, and we're spending all this money fighting these wars. We're essentially fighting the West when we fight Israel. This is dumb. We can do better things. And so him and Begin get the Nobel Peace Prize. Sharaf's marriage ends because she thinks that he's cheating on her all the time because he's been traveling around so much, but he's actually not. And but I've heard in real life he was. I don't know. I kind of did a little back reading on this, but so anyway, this guy goes on to become Ashraf Marwan becomes a billionaire, very successful businessman later in life. But he dies because he apparently fell from a tall building in some rich part of London he lived in.
Yeah.
Nobody believes that this was an accident.
Case was never solved, and the case was never closed.
No, nobody knows who did it. They're pretty sure they know the Israelis didn't do it. Because see, Egypt's changed a lot. Because Sadat was assassinated not long after this. This peace thing they worked out. It was shot by his own people. So yeah, the Egypt has changed a lot since the time of Sadat. And we know it's the Arab Spring. They overthrew the one guy, put the other guy in. He was just as worse. Yeah. So yeah, nobody knows exactly who was behind it, but they're pretty sure it was forces from the Middle East. Because of course everyone said, "Oh, the Mossad did it at first." And it's like, then the story came out. It's like, well, maybe the Mossad didn't do it because actually he helped them. So, and that doesn't exactly encourage people to help the Mossad when the people who help them get thrown off of buildings. It's yeah, that doesn't really drive up recruitment. So it wouldn't be in their advantage to do it. So, but you never know who's doing what and what's going on. It's kind of an interesting story of a time that, a lot of people here don't know much about. So,
yeah.
Because it's during the Cold War, but it's, completely different countries than what we're familiar with. So.
Well, we read that Rise and Kill First book, and I don't think it touches on the general stuff here, but I don't think it ever, I don't remember this guy from that book, but.
No, they probably did. That was more about the people that ran the Mossad, more of their ground game in Palestine and how they went after leaders that directly, it was always like, we don't let them kill our people and then respond. We're just going to start preemptively killing people that we know want us dead, which sounds horrifying until you realize, well, the other option is waiting for people to die, which is kind of what Bush was trying to do with the Iraq War and other things. But when we do things like that, it's not like we got to kill a bunch of guys in a small village somewhere. It's we got to wipe out countries, and that gets expensive and messy. It's a different scale. But yeah, overall, it was I heard you fell asleep twice, but
I started watching the movie at 1 a.m. So what do you expect?
Yeah,
it's not really the movie's fault. It's my fault, but. But
I enjoyed it as kind of a snapshot of a thing that happened in history that I knew nothing about, but I knew about the larger events, but I didn't know anything about the specific people involved. And it's always interesting to see Arab countries, especially countries like Egypt that I know very little about. It's like, oh, well, some of them actually were functioning democracies in some way, and they had they had their own agendas that weren't all evil and stuff like that. So it was good to see, like, oh man, maybe there's some, everyone has a reason for the things that they do. It's not all of them are just bad. But this guy definitely seemed to see through, like, lining up with the Soviet Union. It's just we're just proxies in a war we can't win. Why are we fighting it? It's like, but that challenges everyone's code of honor. Like, wait, no one's using us. The Russians are our friends. No, they're not. They're enemies of the West, is what they are. They're not your friend. They don't care about Egypt, and time has shown that they don't. And Egypt went from buying all Russian military equipment to buying all American military. It was a win-win all around. Because I know during the Arab Spring, some people pointed out, it's like, do you think it's a good idea that we have like multi-billion-dollar yearly deals with these people buying like F-16s and tanks, and being their countries in complete disarray now? This was during the Arab Spring, but they kind of were like, well, it's we got to maintain normalcy. It's like, yeah. But we know what happens when we've had those countries turn against us before.
But it has been 40 years of peace between Israel and Egypt.
Pretty much. I mean, they've never entered into an alliance with Syria and Iran or Iraq. Well, they won't align with the Iranians because they don't like the Iranians. It's the Arab League, not the Arab Persian League. So. Yeah, I'm trying to think who was in the Arab League. It was Egypt, Syria, Iraq. I think Saudi Arabia provided funding, which is what they usually do.
Who's Oman aligned to?
I think they were money providers. I don't know. Let me look up members of the 6-Day War. Let's see who fought in that. But I know Egypt was like the main. Oh, Jordan.
Okay.
Let's see. Where are the other one? Egypt and Jordan are strategically closest to that. Let me see, who were the... Okay, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, with a minor help from Lebanon. So that was the Arab League. Well, it's been called the Arab League a couple different times, but those are the ones that was who the protagonists in the 6 Days War were, those guys. So the Jordanians and the Egyptians have enjoyed a lot of American support and help over the years, so they're allies now because of things like this. The Iraqis not so much, but that's because of other things that have happened. I mean, I guess they're allies. Yeah, probably. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia was, those Gulf, the crown jewel countries, the real rich ones, like Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all they're all funders of that. They don't go get their hands dirty. Why Osama bin Laden was such a big deal, right? One of the reasons is he was one of the richest. He was the son of one of the wealthiest people in Saudi Arabia that was not part of the royal family. And he was the one who they sent to Afghanistan to fight the Mujahideen because they couldn't find any members of the Saudi royal family willing to go. But they did find Osama bin Laden, and we created that monster with the CIA and the Saudis. So that's where that guy came from. But anyway, The Angel. Check it out if you're interested in kind of movies about obscure things in history.
Yeah, it was weird. It popped up my feed, so I thought it was a new movie, but it was made like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been around. I watched it before.
Okay.
So, but I rewatched it for this. And it's, there's nothing like, I can't I mean, all the performances were good. It was well filmed. I mean, there was really no action. It was just a bunch of political intrigue.
Yeah.
There was kind of the most exciting part of the movie is the first 5 minutes, when these guys are, getting ready to queue up an RPG on a passenger plane. And it's like, what leads to this? And then the story kind of jumps into that.
4 years earlier.
Yep. But yeah, good movie. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, talk about microwavable pork rinds.
Yeah, let's hear about those.
They're pretty good.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean, they just take like pork rinds, but they just seem fresh. It's weird because like when you like, I don't know how pork rinds are made. Like it's like back fat thrown in oil.
Yeah.
But here, like if you see them like unpopped, essentially, it's just like a little hard square that you essentially cannot eat.
Yeah.
But you throw it in the microwave and it puffs out into this little puffy, back fat or whatever it is, and it's a crunchy, warm. It was surprisingly good.
So I know you can buy these dry like a potato chip.
Yeah.
But so this is kind of more of a lively flavor.
Yeah, because it's like you're cooking it essentially fresh. So like, and I even overcooked it because like I found out a problem with it. Like you're supposed to really shake the bag before you put it in the microwave, because the problem with it is like, because it didn't say like, here's how long you should put it in. It's like, you should stand around and listen for it to pop, and when it's fully popped, you're ready to go. And like, the bag didn't like swell up like a popcorn bag does. Like, all right, I know it's full. I know it's done because the bag's full. There's less popping. But here, like the bag didn't really like blow up like it normally does. Like the packaging's like kind of small for what it allows. But so I like cooked it for like 6 minutes the first time. But it seemed like you couldn't overcook pork rinds because they tasted just fine. So
yeah.
But who knows? Maybe I almost had a fire going. But yeah, essentially just like these little chiclets of really hard back fat, pig fat, just explode into a bubbly texture of fat and oil or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they put some seasoning on it or whatever. So yeah. Surprisingly good. I bought a bunch after I tried them once. I haven't bought them again, but they're not bad. So it was weird to see, like, what microwavable pork rinds? What are they gonna make next? I didn't know that was a thing you could microwave or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't need. I mean, I knew it was like pigskin and stuff like that, just thrown into a fryer.
Yeah,
like you get them fresh and they're pretty damn good from a fryer. Now the kind you get in a bag they're like Funyuns. They're just kind of bland.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this was done on an industrial scale, and they're not. They're room temperature food. But yeah, everyone else in the world, they're thrown in tallow, and basically it's one of the weird foods that's prepared exactly the same way all around the world. From here to East Asia, they do the same stuff as far as preparation. Now seasonings and spices, that gets a lot different.
Yeah.
But it's one of the few things where like everywhere in the world where they eat pork, they eat this. We do, they do, everyone does. Because even Vietnamese pork rinds prepared exactly the same way. Now they'll put some crazy like dipping sauces and stuff in there that make it different. But yeah,
it's an interesting like eating experience when they're fresh, because it's almost like eating, like, I guess, tasty like bubble wrap, because like it's like popping as you eat it. Like that's what it's like fresh, but it's not like it's popping oil over your tongue. You're like, oh god, it's like. It's just air popping, so it's
just the voids in this.
Yeah.
Collapsing. Yeah, because 80% of it is rendered away in cooking. Because when they do it in England, and they call them scratchings there or something, pork scratchings. They have a different name, but they're just throwing like pigskin and frying tallow, and then pulling it out in a basket. And here you go, and you just let it cool off a little bit, and then it like collapses in your mouth because it's just this big chip. That's mostly air.
Yeah.
And that's what they're probably trying to recreate through the microwaving. So microwave pork rinds, check it out.
Yeah, check it out.
Low in carbohydrates. Apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have for this week.
All right.
This week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.